Hello there. Welcome in to a Wednesday edition. I think it's Wednesday. Good to have you in, whether you're listening on your radio, streaming the show online at extrasports1300.com, or you've downloaded the Extra Sports 1300 app, sponsored by Diversus Health, Mental Health, and well-being for all. A veritable cornucopia of sports topics await you, and I'd love to get your thoughts on all of those topics. 719-247-1313. You could text it in or call it in. Let's start with the Avs today, shall we? This road trip for the Avalanche, I think we're going to look back at the end of the year and look at this stretch, these few days, and say that was the moment that the Avalanche became the team that they would be for the rest of the year. And I know they're still missing some guys, but really, I think we're going to look back on this road trip and say this is when the Avs became the team they would be for the rest of the year. The last time they were at home, before they departed on this road trip, they lost 4-1 to Edmonton. Alexander Georgiev was in goal. They had lost 3 of 4. When they return home tomorrow night to play Utah, they will have a completely remade goalie room, having won 4 of 5 on their longest road trip of the season. And, oh, by the way, after putting up a half dozen last night on Pittsburgh, they will have scored 20 goals, or did score 20 goals on this road trip. Here's Nathan MacKinnon on what he liked most about his team on this trip.
I liked a lot of things. Our game in Carolina, we just had a bad period, but other than that, whole road trip was really solid hockey. We got great goaltending the whole time.
Right there. That pause tells you everything. We got great goaltending the whole time. Not just some of the time, not just once in these 5 games. We got it consistently. And great's probably a bit of a stretch. I think the New Jersey game, you would certainly say that. Anytime you pitch a shutout, I don't care how many shots you face, that's great goaltending. But I don't want to diminish the level of goaltending. I'm just saying, great. To me, but that's kind of the point, is that I don't even know that they got exceptional, great, out-of-this-world goaltending. They had the Detroit game, ironically, it was Alexander Georgiev. There were a few big saves. Scott Wedgwood has made a few big saves over the last couple of days. I don't want to diminish it. But the point I'm just trying to make is that the Avs don't need great goaltending. And maybe given what they have gone through, what Nathan MacKinnon saw on the trip compared to what he's seen before is great goaltending. I don't know that's great goaltending. Wedgwood and the Avs let Pittsburgh back in that game last night until they turned it back on and ended up blowing them out. But whether you think it's great goaltending, good goaltending, pretty good goaltending, it was the type of goaltending that allowed the Colorado Avalanche to be who they are. And it's something that I keep coming back to. The goaltending that they have been getting for large stretches of this season just took them so much out of their rhythm, took them out of the things that they want to do on a game-to-game basis. And we saw over this 5-game road trip that the goaltending that they got, Scott Wedgwood the last 2 nights in particular, opened it up so the Avs could play free. The Avs could play fast the way they want to play. And you saw the results. I get it. Pittsburgh's not a very good team. But you see what this team is capable of when their minds aren't constantly on what's behind them in goal. And you see Mikko Rantanen and Nathan McKinnon rack up 5-point nights. But it's the goaltending they've gone with Scott Wedgwood. Now it's just the mere acquisition of Mackenzie Blackwood. The guy hasn't even played yet. And you can just see the extra bounce that the Avs have, the extra juice that they have. They're rejuvenated. This road trip rejuvenated them. And it's not just the results. It's what the front office has done over the past 7 to 10 days. And they're all talking about it, how excited they are to get Mackenzie Blackwood. And they're all trying to do this thing where they're not dogging on and in, and especially Georgiev. They're trying to be nice, but you listen to these guys talk, including Jared Bednar, and you're just like, it's such a breath of fresh air what they have received via the front office over the last 2 weeks. The signal that it sends. Not only do we believe in the group that we have, but if this group needs anything, we'll go out and get it. That is a powerful message to send to a team. And I think the Avs are playing in kind. Right? Front office, you did your thing. You remade this goalie room. You brought us a couple of goalies that should give us a chance to play the way we want to play. Let's show you what that looks like. Now, the irony, I suppose, is that they really didn't gain that much ground. So, I'm not talking about the Avs getting right back in the thick of things in the Central Division. They're not that far off, but like Dallas, they're tied with in points, and Dallas has 3 games in hand. Like, there's still some ground to be made up. But just the way that the Avs are playing, the way they look like a rejuvenated team. They're playing like a rejuvenated team. So while they didn't gain much ground on Winnipeg, Minnesota, Dallas, look at their schedule coming up. In fact, don't, because especially if you're driving, you don't need to be looking at that. The rest of this month, here are the games that the Avs will play. Utah twice, Nashville, Seattle, San Jose, Anaheim. Their most difficult games are a road game in Vancouver on Monday. And they just got back Thatcher Demko. That will be a difficult game, no doubt about it. And they close out the month on New Year's Eve against Winnipeg, which is shaping up to be a fantastic showcase game for where the Avs are right now. Now, I don't think they'll get any Jonathan Drouin, Miles Wood. I don't think they're getting any of those guys back. Jared Bednar said they're not coming back for a while, and wouldn't you know it, nobody is that bothered by it. I mean, you'd love to have Jonathan Drouin and Miles Wood back with this team, but before, it was like every update from Jared Bednar about, Ross Colton not being close or Jonathan Drouin not being close. It was like twisting the knife a little bit more. Like, not only are they not looking right, not only are they losing, but their help is not on the way. And yet, after last night, you get these updates on Jonathan Drouin and Miles Wood, and you're like, that's mildly disappointing. It's a lot easier to take that kind of news when you see the way the Avs have been playing. But this 4 out of 5 game stretch, there's 4 wins in 5 games, with that schedule that I just mentioned, could very well turn into a 10 of 11, 10 of 12 type streak. Other than Winnipeg, when we talk about the Avs and where they're at in the standings, they're above every single one of those teams I mentioned except Winnipeg. They have more points than every single one of those teams. So ipso facto, they're better than all of those teams except Winnipeg. If the team that you saw on this road trip is the team you're going to see for the rest of December, we'll be right on schedule for one of those big pushes that the Avs always seem to make around this time. December, January, sometimes it's been February, but there's always been a stretch here in this championship window that they're in where they rattle off 10 of 11, 9 of 11, 10 of 12, 12 of 14. Like, it's set up for them to be able to do that. And that's why this road trip, the timing of it all, with the acquisition of Wedgwood, now with the acquisition of Mackenzie Blackwood, is so perfect. Because now the schedule sets up for them to really make a run, and we'll see when the calendar turns to 2025 where that gets them. Now, another piece of last night that I do want to get to. And I'll get into it next because I need to take a break. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts overall on the Avs' performance last night and on this road trip. The guy who scored another hat trick last night, Mikko Rantanen. If there is another item of business or the next item of business on the list, it has to do with Mikko Rantanen for the Colorado Avalanche. We'll talk about that next. Welcome back, Drive Time Sports. Avs with a resounding win to close out the road trip, 6-2. They down the Pittsburgh Penguins. If you're watching the live stream of the show on our social media platforms at XTRA Sports 1300, you can comment right there. We got Brad right here. The energy is palpable for sure with the Colorado Avalanche, and then adds Scotty Too Hottie, dudes on fire right now. B-Rad, hope you're doing well, my friend. Scott Wedgwood, Scotty Too Hottie. Last night, Mikko Rantanen gets the hat trick, and it's his third of the season, and no one else in the NHL has more than one. It's kind of crazy to think about. And Mikko Rantanen obviously is playing extremely well, balling out in his contract year. And the status of Mikko Rantanen moving forward has started to creep to the forefront a little bit. And I think it will continue to do so now that the goaltending situation has been addressed, now that injuries, while they still linger, are not, as big of a topic of conversation. Mikko Rantanen and his future with the Colorado Avalanche is going to come up a little bit more. And the question of why he isn't signed yet, right? Because theoretically, the Avs could have locked him up last summer, right? We see this when you're going to sign an extension. You usually sign the extension the offseason before your final year of your deal. And that didn't happen with Mikko Rantanen. We didn't even get a Jamal Murray-like extension going into the season. Mikko Rantanen doesn't have a contract beyond the season. Why is that? Well, I think it's a very simple reason. The salary cap in the NHL was going to go up. Like, that was the sentiment within the league. The salary cap is going to go up after this season. And someone in Mikko Rantanen's position and his agent's position would definitely like to see what that looks like so they can adjust their asking price accordingly. Now we know it's going to go up about $4.5 million. But then it's going to jump up even more over the next couple of seasons beyond that. So for the first time since the pandemic, right? And the flat cap, hard cap thing that the NHL did, now they're in a situation with the new TV deal and all that kind of stuff to move that salary cap up. 4.5 this year, this coming season, and it's going to grow even more over that. So a player like Mikko Rantanen would want to benefit from that. It's reasonable. So now that that's done, now that we know, and the Avs know, and Mikko Rantanen knows just how much the salary cap's going to go up, I would imagine that the two sides can get back to the bargaining table and really start to hash out this thing and see if there's an agreement. Now, there's also been some talk about what has happened previously in Avalanche history. If you recall, during the dark days, the Avalanche were unwilling to give Ryan O'Reilly more money than Matt Duchene, right? There was a Duchene cap that the Avalanche would not pay anybody more than Matt Duchene. And that became a whole thing with Ryan O'Reilly, who is getting ready to cash in via free agency, and the Avs would not budge. even though Ryan O'Reilly and part of the economics of sports is, hey, it's about timing. I'm the next guy to get paid. So guess what? I get more money. That's how it works. Well, the Avs were unwilling to follow that trend. And it led to kind of a messy breakup with Ryan O'Reilly. And I think in retrospect, it proved to be a mistake on the Avs' part to throw their lot in with Matt Duchene rather than Ryan O'Reilly. Now, in the end, they didn't keep either one of them. So the idea that the Avs are operating with this Nathan MacKinnon cap, that they can't bear the thought of paying anybody more than they pay Nathan MacKinnon. And on the surface, it makes sense. Nathan MacKinnon's the reigning MVP. He's arguably the best player in the world, not named Connor McDavid. He's not arguably. He is the best player in the world, not named Connor McDavid. Would they really pay Mikko Rantanen more than Nathan MacKinnon? And the Avs have not. This is not coming from a lot of different places. Right? But there is some sentiment that the Avs are hesitant to pay Mikko Rantanen more than Nathan MacKinnon. I think there's a difference in this situation. Part of the argument the Avs could make against Ryan O'Reilly was, hey, you're not even the best at what you do on our own team. Right? We have our first line center. It's Matt Duchene. We're going to pay you, our second line center, more than that guy. Mikko Rantanen doesn't play the same position as Nathan MacKinnon. They play together. So, yes, it still applies that Nathan MacKinnon's their best player, but them not being at the same position, I think, matters here. And the fact that Nathan MacKinnon can benefit from having Mikko Rantanen locked up to whatever dollar figure for years to come. There's a symbiotic relationship between Nathan MacKinnon and Mikko Rantanen that never existed between Matt Duchene and Ryan O'Reilly. For all intents and purposes, Ryan O'Reilly was Matt Duchene's backup. So I think that's one. Nathan MacKinnon, by the way, for frame of reference, makes $2.6 million right now per year. Two, Nathan MacKinnon does not strike me as the person with the ego that Matt Duchene may have had back then, because paying Ryan O'Reilly would have irked Matt Duchene. I don't know that paying Mikko Rantanen is going to bother Nathan MacKinnon within reason, right? If the Avs max out Mikko Rantanen and give him the richest contract of any winger in NHL history, then maybe that could happen. But if he goes a little bit above Nathan MacKinnon, given all these other factors about the salary cap going up and the fact that Nathan MacKinnon and Mikko Rantanen play together, I got to imagine that Nathan MacKinnon wouldn't be as bothered by it. Just doesn't strike me as that kind of a guy to really let it affect him. I would understand if he gets, kind of like, oh, I signed this deal and now Mikko's getting paid more. Like, we all do that. Doesn't mean we let it affect our work or we have animosity towards the person that got paid, but you just kind of look at it and go, really? You're going to pay that guy that? So that's natural, but does it bother him? Will he let it linger? I don't see Nathan MacKinnon being like that. And here's probably the biggest piece of all of this. Ryan O'Reilly was not even close to being in consideration for the best at what he does. Again, I said he wasn't even the best on his own team, or at least that was the perception. time showed out you'd probably rather have Ryan O'Reilly than Matt Duchene. But at the time, nobody thought Ryan O'Reilly was better than Matt Duchene. And neither one of those two guys was in the conversation for the best center in hockey. Mikko Rantanen is arguably the best winger in hockey. In fact, he may be the best. Only David Pastrnak has scored more goals over the last 5 years than Mikko Rantanen from the winger position, right? Connor McDavid scored more from a winger. Again, we're talking about a different position. Only Pastrnak has scored more goals than Mikko Rantanen over the last 5 years. Only Nikita Kucherov has done more winning and has been a part of more winning than Mikko Rantanen has over the last 5 years. And neither blends the other. David Pastrnak has not won nearly as much as Mikko Rantanen, and Kucherov hasn't scored as many goals as Mikko Rantanen. You can make an argument that Mikko Rantanen is the best at what he does. And if you have that designation, you should be compensated. And the team that is set to compensate you should be willing to compensate you. Mikko Rantanen's the best at what he does. He's not a winger. He's the best. And you pay guys like that. And if at any point you're worried about future, right? Because so often contracts get paid based on previous performance, and then they never live up to the contract. Mikko Rantanen, for reference, is 3 years younger than Nikita Kucherov, who just finished second to Nathan MacKinnon in the MVP voting last year. And Nathan MacKinnon is locked up through 2031. I don't see any indicator that would tell me that Mikko Rantanen is going to suddenly fall off a cliff once the Avs give him this contract. And this front office, led by Chris McFarland, has proven in just the last 48 hours that they are not content to just keep the window open. Letting Mikko Rantanen go or trading him by the deadline and bringing in a younger up-and-coming wing could extend the Avs window. But what the Avalanche have shown, and shown in the last 48 hours, is that they're not okay just extending the window. They want to maximize the window. And what better way to maximize the window than keeping Mikko Rantanen and Nathan MacKinnon and Cale Makar, the NHL's best trio, together for the foreseeable future? Maybe there is some apprehension on the part of the Avs to give Mikko Rantanen more money than Nathan MacKinnon. That can't, in the end, cause these two sides to part. It can't. I understand some of the hesitation on that part. Maybe you try and get Mikko Rantanen to take a little less than fair market value. The Avs do have the hammer, so to speak, because they can offer an 8th season that other teams cannot if he goes out onto the open market. So they can do some accounting there to make up some of the difference in the AAV. I don't see the argument to not signing Mikko Rantanen at this point. And I don't think that any of these other things that are being brought up are going to end up being an impediment. I think the timing of Mikko Rantanen, the fact that he hasn't signed a deal, there's a very practical reason to it. And it is finding out how much the salary cap is going to go up in future years. I don't think it's because Mikko Rantanen doesn't want to be with the Avalanche or the Avalanche don't want him. So there's a practical reason why it's taken this long. And I think when it's said and done, I think Mikko Rantanen stays. Another thing that Chris McFarland has been pretty good at since he's taken over for Joe Sakic, he gets these deals done. McKinnon, Makar, Taves, the list goes on. The best thing that Chris McFarland has done in his tenure as Avs GM is keep the guys that Joe Sakic has brought in on the team for the foreseeable future. This is what Chris McFarland does more than anything else. And I don't see why Mikko Rantanen would be an exception. But now that these cap figures are figured out, we'll see if there's some movement here. Because I don't think either party would want this to linger. Just had this road trip, all the good stuff going on with the Avs. Why potentially take away from it by having a prolonged contract negotiation? But we'll see. This will become a bigger topic now that some of the other Avs discussion points have kind of gone away. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, the latest on Bill Belichick potentially taking over North Carolina and why. I see what North Carolina is doing, and I know what program in America they're looking at when they're thinking about Bill Belichick. Just don't know that it's quite going to work out the same way. Wait for it. It's the most wonderful time of the year, and we want to make it even better with $1,000 towards your winter wish list. Use it for holiday shopping, travel, or to treat yourself. Enter this national contest on extrasports1300.com for a chance to fulfill your winter wish list, sponsored locally by Downtown Colorado Springs and Downtown CS.com. To put a bit of a bow on our Avalanche conversation with a couple of things brought up by you, B-Rad called in and mentioned Gabriel Landeskog. And I think that that's also part of this. The Avalanche are going to have to make a definitive decision about where Gabriel Landeskog fits in with this team after this season is over. After this season, they're done waiting. And I'm not saying that Gabriel Landeskog's done necessarily, but they have to make a decision about where he fits and the money he makes and all that kind of stuff. That's also a consideration, I think, here for Mikko Rantanen. And we could probably even throw on top of that Valeri Nichushkin. Right? Is the uncertainty. And with Nichushkin, he scored an unbelievable goal last night. He looks like he's in rhythm now. But, you know, are we going to have another thing with him? And then the bigger thing with Gabriel Landeskog. But I think more than anything else, it is the salary cap going up, finding out what that's going to look like. But I think the decision they make on Gabriel Landeskog could be a result or could be in concert with what they offer Mikko Rantanen. Text from the 719. Quick comment from the end of yesterday's show. The Office jumped the shark when she said what she said left when Michael Scott left. Go Avs. The Jets looked awesome last night versus the Bruins. Will be a great game. I stuck around The Office because I loved Robert California. That character played by James Spader was amazing. And if they hadn't brought him in immediately, then I probably would have went out. But yeah, the beginning of the end for The Office was when Michael Scott left. 100%. But I like the Robert California episodes. And then when Andy became the manager, is like, this is bad. I'm going to see this through to the end, but I don't like it. And if you didn't listen yesterday, I made an Office reference to the time where Jim and Pam were going through marriage counseling. I didn't enjoy that. I didn't enjoy that arc on The Office. There was a sports reason for it. I forget now, but it worked. It worked in the moment. To your other point about Winnipeg, they absolutely demolished Boston last night. To the point that, like, Boston's crying foul, that Winnipeg's running up the score. They had a fourth liner score a goal on the power play, and Boston's getting upset at Winnipeg. Like, what do you expect? We have a power play, and we have our lowest power play unit out on the ice, and we happen to score a goal, and you're mad at us? Like Joe Sacco, who replaced, friend of the Avalanche. Remember Joe Sacco took over for Jim Montgomery. Now he's picking fights with Winnipeg's head coach. Like, it was a bad night for the Bruins. Bad night. But that game is going to be great. Mackenzie Blackwood versus Connor Hellebuck, Avs versus Jets. December 31st. We'll see where the Avs are at that point. So I guess the latest with Bill Belichick, my goodness, are they drawing this thing out? The latest with Bill Belichick is that essentially the ball's in his court, whether he wants the North Carolina job. There have been reports that he's already agreed to it, and others are like, no, that's not the case right now. Just refresh. He's finalizing a deal. So call it ball's in his court. They're finalizing a deal. This thing is going to get done, barring some 11th hour catastrophe. In today's world of college football and college athletics, really, it's going to require a different type of coach. And we see a lot of the older generation leaving, right? And many of them right at the top of the list is the direction that it's going. So there is already starting to be this new crop of coach. And you see teams or colleges looking in kind of different directions, in directions that maybe they wouldn't have gone before. And maybe there are some candidates that would be interested in coaching in college that wouldn't have been before. And I think Bill Belichick falls into that category. But I also think North Carolina, and I give them credit for this, is thinking outside the box. Right? And saying maybe an NFL coach, especially one of Bill Belichick's stature, would be the kind of thing that could help us compete in this new age of college football. And it's what Bill Belichick, in his public comments about the gig, has been talking about, that college football and the NFL look more alike every day. And I think in many ways, and not to say that he's been the most successful with this so far in terms of wins and losses, Kenny Dillingham, I think, could be held up right now, or maybe Dan Lanning, just because Oregon now has a blank check to spend on NIL. They have Nike backing them in a way they've never had before. And you see what Michigan did to get Bryce Underwood with the Silicon Valley guys and everything. So there are other coaches who are embracing this new world of college football and doing better than Deion Sanders is doing in terms of wins. But I think a lot of people look at Deion Sanders. If you're looking to not only compete in today's world of college football, but to really change your entire program, Deion Sanders is kind of the poster child for that, right? And so I think Deion Sanders is kind of what North Carolina is thinking. Who can we get that's maybe a little outside the box? Maybe not everybody would be on board with it. There'd be questions, but it would excite our fan base to the point that we can get some of the necessary funds to be able to compete. And, oh, by the way, hire a capable enough coach so we can, win games with the talent that we're now going to try and attract. So I get why North Carolina is doing this. 100%. And I don't see the downside. I don't see the downside for either party. Because I've really been thinking about this from the Belichick side of it. Does anybody need Belichick to pass Don Shula to call him the greatest coach of all time? Haven't we already decided on this? I know Bill Belichick wanted to pass him. All right, but there are things, he got passed over last year. He's not going to get as much control in his next NFL stop. and look at the jobs that could potentially be open. How many of them are that appealing? So I know he wants to pass Don Shula, but how long would it take him? And would he be limping across that finish line? And would it just be better to go on, take on a new challenge, a different challenge, to try and test his wherewithal as a coach, to take on this brave new world of college football and try to do that? I actually think it has the chance to enhance Bill Belichick's legacy more than passing Don Shula, as if he's successful at North Carolina. And then you throw in, giving his son an opportunity to take over for him. And I'm not a fan of nepotism, but just at the very least, if Belichick brings his son on staff and has some assurances from North Carolina, like, hey, I'm going to groom him. Will you at least, consider him? Right? Having his own program to bring in his son and empower him to become a head coach in college football, I think is appealing to him. More control. He'll have as much control as he wants to have in college. I'm sure he'll delegate a lot of stuff. And then, not for nothing, but he'll be able to keep his finger on the pulse of what people of the same generation as his girlfriend are talking about. That was unnecessary. I didn't need to throw it in, but I did. And you know where it's coming from? Jealousy. We should all be so lucky as Bill Belichick. Good on him. I admire the man. But it's just the lowest hanging fruit, and I can't help it. So all that being said, I could see it from both sides, and I really don't see the downside. Even if Belichick does not win at North Carolina, does it change what he did in New England? Take Pete Carroll, for instance, who went kind of the other way. Does anybody forget his second stint in the NFL with Seattle? Did anyone, when talking about how great of a college coach or how great of a coach, period, Pete Carroll was, brought up his days in the NFL? No, he's just looking at USC. Same thing with Bill Belichick. What he did with the New England Patriots, that's done. He's the coaching GOAT when it comes to the NFL, and nothing he does at Carolina is going to change that. So I don't see the downside for either party. I just don't see it working out to the extent that it's working out and will continue to work out as long as Deion Sanders is in Boulder. I think he'll improve a lot at North Carolina, but there's still questions. I think that he will get money into the coffers. People will be excited in Chapel Hill about having the greatest, arguably the greatest football coach of all time, certainly the greatest NFL coach of all time, coaching their team. That excitement is going to cause people to open up their pocketbook. So I think that will help. You want to give all these guys want a path to the NFL. Bill Belichick can certainly give them that. But how about on the offensive side? Right? Deion Sanders has been able to do a really good job of appealing to players on both sides of the football. Even though he's a defensive guy, played on the defensive side, he still appeals. Look at all the wide receivers they've been able to bring in. I don't know if Belichick does that. I think his offensive coordinator hire is going to be vitally important. But he's someone that you listen to him when he tells you this is what it takes to get to the NFL. Right? So he's going to bring in NIL money. He's going to give guys a path to the NFL. And I think he's such a good coach. North Carolina is going to win more than they have. They've won 3 bowl games in 20 years. So I think he's going to improve all those things. I just don't know that he's going to improve it to the level that North Carolina hopes he will. To the level that Deion Sanders is on track to do at CU. It will be effective in those areas. It just won't be. I don't think we'll be talking about North Carolina. I mean, look at the sleeping giant that has been awakened in Dallas with SMU. Right? In the world of NIL, we're right back to the Pony Excess days. Right? So in Miami the same way. They got to figure out someone else to fund them because the other guy went bankrupt, right? But Miami, SMU, North Carolina is never going to be able to compete with those schools. I think overall it will work to a degree. Over time, is he going to be ultimately successful? Are they going to be chasing AC? Are they going to be winning ACC titles? I don't know that they will be. But maybe the upside's not what they think it will be, but there is virtually no downside. I don't see why this would be bad for Belichick or for North Carolina. So you might as well give it a go. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, the biggest thing that would keep the Denver Broncos from getting an all-so-important victory over the Indianapolis Colts. Welcome in Drive Time Sports on this Wednesday. Ryan Kaufman with you. You could watch the show live on our social media platforms, Facebook, X, Instagram, YouTube. The handle all the same at XTRA Sports 1300. Broncos back at work, getting ready for the Indianapolis Colts. A game that will be of great significance to this franchise. Right now, the Broncos have about 75% chance of making the playoffs. They beat Indianapolis, which right now is their biggest competition. Their chances will go up to about 94%, which always leaves a little wiggle room that they could not make the playoffs. They're not clinching, but it feels like if the Broncos win on Sunday, they will clinch a playoff spot. Sean Payton was asked today whether it's something he brings up with his team, where they stand and what Sunday's game or any of these games down the stretch mean. Let's try that one more time.
At the right time, I might just say, hey, this is where we're at. This is, what we're looking at. And look, it's a group that I think understands that.
They do, because they've been talking about it for weeks now. If Sean Payton, if they didn't know, if they were just mindless drones that showed up, played football, and went home, didn't pay attention to, didn't watch television, didn't read the newspaper, didn't get on social media, and had no idea that they were this close to clinching a playoff spot. And Sean Payton never brought it up. The media that shows up there every day would let them know. Like, there is no way that this team doesn't know what Sunday's game means. They've gone through the different machinations. They know what's at stake. They know what they have to do. And they saw with the flex of the Charger game, they also drew the same conclusions, if they didn't even know, that you and I did. Well, wait, if they beat the Colts and they beat the Bengals, this thing's a wrap. As long as, Miami doesn't win out. Winning 3 of 4 does make it a wrap. But they know. I mean, it's like, do you talk to your team about it? You don't need to. They live in the year 2024. It is unavoidable. If there is a single player on the Denver Broncos that doesn't understand where they fit in the pecking order and what they need to do in order to make the playoffs, then I kind of envy them, because they're able to ignore or avoid so much in this world. That's something that has to do with their profession. You don't think they know? They know. Sean Payton doesn't need to say it. So, if you recall, I was less than complimentary about the Broncos' performance against the Browns. In fact, I thought if they did the money puck deserve to win-o-meter, the Browns would be very much 70, 80%. And if not for Jameis Winston having those demons come back with those pick sixes, I think it's a very different tone around the Denver Broncos going into the bye week. I did not think they played well. I thought they were quite fortunate that they were able to beat the Cleveland Browns. And Sean Payton was asked about the difficulty of fixing things this late in the season.
I think you have to address it, and you have to, as a coach, you have to, it's much easier to do, certainly when you come off a win, but you can't fool yourself, that's important.
And Sean Payton talked about it after the game, right? It's specifically the defensive game plan on Jerry Jeudy. He said that there are things that they're going to look at and they're going to wish they would have done better. That's number one on the list. Sean Payton knows. It's quite, I don't understand why he didn't come to the realization during the game, or he probably did and just was stubborn, bordering on arrogant. But certainly he knows that team played well enough, but not well. And he's used that line before. Can't fool yourself. He's been very honest in assessing his team. And even in games where you're like, well, it was all good for the Broncos, Carolina is a great example. Sean Payton was very upset. But to his credit, he's shown the ability for them, or his ability to coach them up, and the team has shown the ability to make improvements, correct mistakes from one week to the next. And if you're going to be a playoff team, that's what you got to do. Because every team, the Lions and the Chiefs are only going to have a setback. Most of the teams in the NFL will have multiple setbacks. And you got to be able to bounce back. You can't let the same problems linger over multiple weeks, or you might find yourself on a losing streak, something that you cannot afford if you're trying to make the postseason. And the Broncos have done a really good job of being able to correct mistakes and to be better the following week. And that's why my confidence in them on Sunday is quite high. Because not only have they shown that ability throughout the year, but now they've had an entire bye week to iron out the mistakes, to figure out what they did wrong, attack this game a little bit better than they did the Cleveland game. But that's not to say that Indy doesn't present some issues. One thing about this Broncos defense in particular that I find myself at times throughout the year being a little dissatisfied. They've left me wanting a bit more on the defensive side is their run defense. At times, I've seen running backs break some tackles, get to the second level. I've seen the Broncos give up chunk yards on the ground. And I would probably say that that's probably the weakest part of their defense. And we're talking about arguably the best defense in the league. So I know I'm splitting hairs, but hey, if there's a team that can exploit that, that's a problem. Broncos defense against the run is arguably the worst thing about their defense. It's not bad. In fact, they're near the top in rush defense, but at times it has hurt them. But you look at some of and Jonathan Taylor, obviously coming in on Sunday, considered one of the better running backs. He's in the top half of the league in rushing. But you look at other backs. They've gone against Alvin Kamara. They've gone against Bijan Robinson. They played against Najee Harris. They've faced a lot of good running backs in the league. Chuba Hubbard even. And you look at some of the numbers with some of them, and like Broncos did a really good job on him. Alvin Kamara did nothing when they played the Saints. Conversely, Derrick Henry ran all over them. So the difference that I have found, or the theme I have found, the games where I don't love the Broncos defense, two things happen. One, they're not able to jump on an opponent. Right? And it stands to reason. You jump on an opponent, you put them down in a 2-score hold, they're going to have to become one-dimensional. Right? So the games where their rush defense has left something to be desired, those are games that the Broncos haven't been able to get out in front, right? New Orleans, Carolina, those were games where they jumped on their opponents. Here's the other part. The two worst performances for a game, and I remember Kenneth Walker, as you do, in the third quarter of week 1. So you can even add that one in. But I'm looking at Najee Harris and Derrick Henry. Two of the worst performances from the Broncos' run defense. The common thread between those two. They have quarterbacks that you also have to worry about their legs. Lamar Jackson, certainly, but remember, it was Justin Fields who was the starter against Denver. To varying degrees. Obviously, you don't worry nearly as much about anything about Justin Fields the way you do Lamar Jackson. But quarterbacks who can also run causes the Broncos' run defense to have to think a little bit more, to have to worry a little bit more. And if Pittsburgh and especially Baltimore have been two of the lesser performances from the Broncos' run D, I think there's your answer. 2 games where the Broncos obviously did not jump on their opponent, and 2 games where they also had to worry about the quarterback running the football. Guess what Indianapolis brings to the table? Here's more from Sean Payton.
A big part of their run game is, both he and the halfback. So it presents, a completely different type challenge than weeks prior.
Yeah. Anthony Richardson, despite being benched, if you recall, still one of the top rushing quarterbacks in the league. So if there is a path here for Indianapolis to come into Denver and to ruin the Broncos' weekend, and by extension, your weekend, that is how they do it. Because this season, when the Broncos have not been outstanding in the run game, it is run defense. It has been because they've also had to worry about a quarterback using his legs. And they have to worry about that on Sunday. That's how the Colts win. And that's the biggest thing that the Broncos need to worry about going into Sunday. If they figure that out, I don't see anything else from Indianapolis that would give me pause about taking the Denver Broncos. That's it. If their attention being split between Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson causes them to have some of the leaks in the run defense, that's how Indy stays in this game, and that's how they potentially win. The Broncos can figure that out. Should be pretty comfortable for them on Sunday. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on Broncos Colts. We'll continue on with Drive Time Sports in just a moment. But first, if you feel like you've lost more than just a step or two, it could be low testosterone. Don't wait. Get your levels checked by the experts at Low T Center. They have over a decade of experience with testosterone therapy or TRT. And for established patients, they offer an at-home TRT treatment that includes both lab testing and medication. The TRT plan from Low T Center is a personalized treatment plan. That's what we all love in our lives, right? Experiences, things, products that are personalized to us. And that's what Low T Center does. They're not just the basic standard treatment offered by some providers. And the at-home TRT plan ships directly to your door. So it's possible that one of the only times you actually go into Low T Center is to get your levels checked, but you should do that. Go to lowtcenter.com to book your appointment. lowtcenter.com, reinventing men's healthcare. Give the gift of Nuggets basketball this holiday season. Visit nuggets.com/holidays to explore the latest Nuggets gear, ticket packages, and more. From exclusive merch to unforgettable game day experiences, we've got everything to make this holiday season all together now a slam dunk. By the way, Jamal Murray, in the estimation of Michael Malone, questionable for Friday's game against the Los Angeles Clippers. Vinny Benedetto of the Gazette reporting that it didn't look like Jamal Murray was participating much in practice based on the way that he was dressed out compared to his teammates. So we'll see what happens come Friday when they play the Clippers in one of these added games, because the Nuggets did not make the NBA Cup quarterfinals, semifinals. I don't know what stage they're at. They just have games thrown in against other losers, like in this case, the Kings and the Clippers, who did not advance in the NBA Cup. So there's that. Since Major League Baseball instituted a draft lottery system in 2023, the Colorado Rockies have had the best odds, or been tied for the best odds of getting the number one pick in 2 of the 3 years. In fact, the last 2 years, they have had the best odds, or tied for the best odds, to get the number one pick. Big opportunity, right? Get the number one pick in the draft. Well, Bill Schmidt, the Rockies general manager, quipped, joked with media members, both local and national, that he hoped Clint Hurdle would not screw it up. Clint Hurdle was at the draft lottery representing the Colorado Rockies, and lo and behold, Clint Hurdle screwed it up. The Rockies are drafting 4th in a draft that they had tied for the best odds of getting the number one pick, which is also the way it's been, because last year the Rockies had the best odds and ended up picking 3rd. So the lottery system, in summation, has not been kind to the Colorado Rockies. But what makes this one hurt extra for Rockies fans is that the top prize, the consensus number one player in the draft, is Ethan Holiday, younger brother of Jackson, son of former Rocky Matt Holiday. So they didn't get Jackson Holiday. They didn't get Bo Bichette. And now they're not going to get Ethan Holiday. And when Carlos Gonzalez's children are old enough to play professional baseball, which with a swing like his, if they inherit that from their father, they're making Major League Baseball. I don't even know if he has any sons. They will inevitably miss out on them too. That's what makes it hurt. Just a little bit more. Not even that can go right for the Colorado Rockies. And here's the thing, too. You know me. I don't like draft lotteries. I think they're unnecessary. And I especially think that, you know what? If you're as resolute to tank for 162 games as you'll have to be to have the number one overall pick, then God love you, you can have the number one pick. If you suck for 162 games, better yet, let me do it this way. If you subject your fans to the most horrid season of baseball of any team in the league for an entire summer, for 162 games, your fans deserve the number one overall pick. And if you've watched Rockies baseball, you know it's like the what's the tainted water at Camp Lejeune. Like, if you've watched Rockies baseball for any period of time over the past 2 seasons, you may be entitled to the number one pick. Not just that you may be entitled, you are entitled. For Major League Baseball to go this long without a lottery and then all of a sudden go, we're going to do a lottery, just as the Rockies are having the worst record in baseball the last 2 years, that's garbage. No league should have a lottery system. And if you told me, Ryan, you have to have one sport that had a lottery system, you know who I pick? The NFL. The NFL. Because if the lottery system is put into place to prevent teams from tanking, what sport would be easiest to tank in? You only have 17 games. Now, I know there's the perception that NFL teams don't tank, and that's probably pretty close. But, you know, the Giants also put in Tommy DeVito voluntarily a few weeks ago. So don't tell me it doesn't exist. That no one has ever tanked in the history of the NFL. If any sport should have a draft lottery, which none should, but if you told me I had to pick one, it would be the NFL. If you suck so bad for 82 games, and especially 162, your fans deserve the number one pick. And what a story it would be. Ethan Holiday, son of Matt Holiday, going to the Colorado Rockies, the franchise that his dad played for, the franchise where his dad had the iconic, indelible image of the scraped up chin when he absolutely did not touch home plate in game 163 against the San Diego Padres. You deserve it. Not talking about the Rockies deserving it. You, the fan, deserve Ethan Holiday in a Rockies jersey, and now you're not going to get it because of this lottery system that somehow Rob Manfred felt compelled to put into place just 3 years ago. And the Rockies have been screwed by it in back-to-back years. Can't even do this right. But there is hope. Yesterday, I dismissed the possibility of them signing the new hot Japanese import, Roki Sasaki, and that was wrong of me. That was wrong of me. I shouldn't have been so quick to dismiss their chances because I did not hear all of what Joel Wolf, the agent for Roki Sasaki, said yesterday. And I listened to this and I said, wait a minute now. We might be onto something. Here's Joe Wolf.
I think that there's an argument to be made that a smaller mid-market team might be more beneficial for him as a soft landing coming from Japan, given what he's been through. Not having an enjoyable experience with the media, it might be. I'm not saying it will be, but I don't know how he's going to view it. It might be beneficial for him to be in a smaller market.
Rockies might have a chance. Because Denver, and nobody talks about this, Denver is a smaller market than Tampa. Everyone looks at the Rays as the smallest market. They're a bigger market than Denver. So smaller, yeah, Denver's a smaller market. Mid, you can't find a team in Major League Baseball that exemplifies mid more than the Rockies. If you're looking for a smaller mid-market, You can't get more mid than baseball in Denver. You had a bad experience. Your client had a bad experience with the media in Japan. Guess what? You can sign with the Rockies and half of the media won't even know that he signed. They will be completely unaware. He can just sneak into Colorado, play for a few years until he can really maximize his net worth, and then he could go. And half of the media members in the state of Colorado wouldn't have ever known he was here in the first place. And the other half of the media that goes up to the Rockies game is just because they're like, well, I'm already at Broncos training camp. I might as well. Unless you are Chris Bryant, who is perpetually hurt, or Dick Monfort, nobody on the Rockies gets criticized. Everybody loves Bud Black. So if you had a bad experience with the media, you don't want to go to New York. You don't want to go to Chicago. You don't want to go to Philly. They'll eat your client alive. You want to go to a smaller market? Denver's a smaller market. You like mid? Everything about the Rockies is mid. Forget what I said yesterday. This is the perfect fit. At this point, if Roki Sasaki is not a Colorado Rocky, then it is a major upset because they have everything he's looking for. If you ignore the fact that Coors Field exists and nearly every pitcher that has ever shown even an inkling of promise has either had his career come to a ruinous end via performance or health. Other than that, this is where Roki Sasaki's got to be. Be great. And I look forward to it. And I expect it. Next week, week after that, mid-January, I don't know when he's going to sign. He should be a Rocky. It's exactly what he's looking for. Although, didn't Joe Wolf say, I don't know if it will matter to him? Might have a little out there. My guess, he goes to the Angels. How do you get all the amenities of a big market without any of the attention of a big market? Go to Anaheim. Right? Go to Anaheim. Nobody cares about the Angels, but yet you're living in LA. And now he's got Shohei Ohtani across the freeway. As much as I would like Joe Wolf's comments to scream Colorado Rockies, it screams Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. Which just goes to show, like, how are the Angels not good? They have all the perks of a big market with none of the downside. They don't have high pressure media. They don't have expectation. Even if they got good, they wouldn't have the expectation that the Dodgers do. Anyway, everything's still terrible with the Rockies. Was the point of the whole segment. It's not getting better. They didn't get Juan Soto, and they're probably not getting Roki Sasaki. And Nolan Arenado is not going to waive his no trade clause to go to the Rockies. But guess where he would waive his no trade clause, coincidentally? The Angels. Nolan Arenado, who wants to win, who wants to leave St. Louis to win, somehow included the Angels on his list of teams he would go to. Along with your normal, LA, New York. So no Soto. They just missed out. In fact, did you see the tweet? Somebody emailed Dick Monfort and begged him to sign Juan Soto. And his reply was Juan Soto has already said publicly he wants to stay on the East Coast. That's why the Rockies didn't get Juan Soto. Dang it. Geography. He wanted to stay on the East Coast as Cohen meets with him at his LA home. No Soto, no Sasaki probably, and no Arenado. Seven 719-24-7-1313. We'll continue on with the show in just a moment. End of the year is coming up, which means there's a new one right on the other side of it. We've learned our lesson from Y2K. We do believe that there will be another year once the calendar turns. But are you going to start the new year dealing with the same joint pain that's been bothering you all of 2024? Why would you do that? QC Kinetics. They're right here in Colorado Springs for you. They got locations in Denver as well. If you're listening to us up there, they're up and down the Front Range. They're right here, ready to help you. Their advanced protocols in regenerative medicine have helped tens of thousands of people get lasting relief. Why lasting relief? Because they treat the root cause. If you don't treat the root cause, it's going to come back. You're not going to stay relieved. Got to treat the root cause. QC Kinetics does. And they use the healing properties of your own body to attack the root cause of your pain. So this is not surgery. It's not drugs. It's not steroids. And with QC Kinetics treatments, there's no downtime either. Find out if all natural regenerative medicine is right for you heading into 2025. Call QC Kinetics. The consultation is free. 719-347-1988. 719-347-1988. QC Kinetics. 719-347-1988. It is the most wonderful time of the year, and we want to make it even better with $1,000 towards your winter wish list. Use it for holiday shopping, holiday travel, or a holiday treat for yourself, because no one deserves it more than you. Enter this national contest on xtrasports1300.com for a chance to fulfill your winter wish list, sponsored locally by Downtown Colorado Springs and downtowncs.com. What do I hate more than anything else in sports? I hate draft lotteries. I hate teams that pack up and move from one city to the next, try and co-opt their history from their previous city that they abandoned. I'm sorry, that does not work that way. You left, you leave it there. But what I hate, maybe more than anything else in sports, is when politicians get involved in sports. You know, remember the stick to sports movement? How about stick to politics? And today I am talking about Josh Williams. And by the way, this bothers me at every level. It bothered me when Governor Polis put out a tweet about the Switchbacks playing in the championship and he used the old logo. Anytime a politician and their stupid wagers for the Super Bowl, I'll give you a basket of Georgia peaches. I'll give you a basket of Colorado apples. Stay out. Once you enter a life of politics, get out of sports. There are only a few politicians that have ever been able to do it at a tolerable level. And the reason why is because they know. Barack Obama knew basketball, so it was okay that he filled out his bracket. There are a few politicians that through the years, I think that Donald Trump knows UFC very well. If he were to speak on the UFC, I would probably say, you know what? He probably knows what he's talking about. He's had all of these fights. It's fine. But so many politicians. See what I did there? The equal time, Obama and Trump. See? Anyway, most politicians do not know anything about sports. And some politicians just use sports to gain political points. And I think that's pretty true across the board. Our latest example is Josh Williams, a Republican. Typical Republican getting involved in sports. He could easily be a Democrat or from the Green Party. It does not matter. He is a politician. And he has introduced legislation to make flag planting at college stadiums illegal and a felony. Oh, did I mention that Josh Williams represents the state of Ohio? He thinks he's doing the will of the people. And I could get into a much deeper discussion about how out of touch politicians are with the people that they serve, but this is not the venue for it. He thinks that Ohio State fans would welcome this. Yes, Josh Williams, take all of my donation money. I will vote for you for the next 8 campaigns that you run because you are embarrassing us on a national level because Ohio State fans in the state of Ohio look so petty and soft. Even if you disagree with the act of flag planting, nobody wants there to be a law against it. If anything, people would want less regulations. They would want the ability for their team to punch the other team in the face when they planted their flag in their field. We want less regulation when it comes to flag planting. We want the Wild West. If you plant a flag in the middle of a visiting team's field, you might get punched in the face, and everyone's going to be okay with that. But to make it a law that you can't do it, come on now. If anything, this is the moment, when they say, write to your politician. This is when you write to your politician and say, you are not representing my best interest, because I am an Ohio State fan that can't even go into work today without being laughed at and mocked because someone from my state is trying, and a fan of my team is trying to outlaw flag planting because Michigan did it at the Horseshoe. It's so soft. It's so pathetic, but yet it is so on brand for politicians trying to gain political points with voters by getting involved in sports. You know what politician I would vote for? The one that's like, I know nothing about sports and I'm not going to speak on it. I'm not going to mispronounce your favorite athlete's name. I'm not going to make flag planting a crime. I'm not going to make a wager with a politician from the other state that we're playing in the big game. I'm staying completely out of it. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to figure out a way to get that pothole in front of your house fixed. Thank you, politician. That's what I hire you to do. Making it illegal and felony. Bro, come on. Ohio State, you got to speak out. You got to stand up and you got to decry what this gentleman has tried to do, because he has made your entire fan base and school that you love so much and state, if I may be so bold, look like a bunch of sore losers. And maybe you are. But you know what we do? What sore losers do? We punch holes in walls. We get into fistfights with strangers. We don't make flag planting illegal. We have more class than that. Josh Williams, stick to politics, please. You got your hands full with that endeavor already. All right. If you feel like you've lost a step or two, it could be low testosterone. And I'm being told that. I'm not an expert in this because I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical professional. But people at Low T Center are. And I'm telling you that you should go see them. At least get your levels checked. Because it could be low testosterone that's causing you to lose more than maybe just a step or two. And Low T Center has over a decade of experience with testosterone therapy, or TRT. And for established patients, they even offer at-home TRT treatment that ships directly to your door. Other places, they'll just do a basic standard treatment plan. It's not what we want. We want it tailored, personalized to us. Go to lowtcenter.com to book your appointment. Get those levels checked. And if it is low T, just know you're in the right place to take care of that. lowtcenter.com, reinventing men's healthcare. It's been my pleasure to serve you today. I will be back with you tomorrow. Another week of the NFL begins. Enjoy your evening.